Hello, I'm Evan with New Life for Old Bikes. Behind me is my late 1980s Bianchi Forte. Today we're going to change out the cables, including the shifter cables and the brake cables. Although these cables work properly, their physical condition is deteriorating. If you'll notice, there's severe checking on the cable housing and there's fraying on the ends of the cables. I suspect that when we pull the cables out of the housing, we'll find there's corrosion inside. They probably don't work as smoothly as they could. The front brakes on this bike are cantilever. Just a note here, you want this angle to be as close to 90 degrees as possible to get the most pulling power. The straddle cable clamp has this neat little plastic cover on it on this particular bike. Not all of them will have that. This particular brake handle has a rubber cover over it, which we're going to back off. Since my front cable housing was a good length, I'm just simply going to measure it and use it to cut the new cable. This particular set of cables has two different ends on this. We're going to be keeping the one for the mountain bike and cutting the one off for the road bike. Next, I'm going to put back the cable adjuster. This particular one just slides in. Yours may screw in. Before I do that, though, I'm going to put a little grease on the threads. I'm wiping a little grease on the cable to prevent these from corroding. Next, I'm going to slide the rubber boot back on. A cable ferrule on the cut end of the cable finishes it nicely. I'm pulling the cable through the cable hanger, which is located under the handlebar stem. Next, I hate to have to do this, but I'm going to shorten this straddle cable because of the condition. At some point I'll get a hold of another straddle cable and replace it. At the moment we're going to hope that this will have enough pulling power to work even when shortened. My Bianchi has an unusual brake setup. It has a U-brake, which is actually underneath the bike on the rear stays. It's located right behind the bottom bracket or crank. A U-brake is very similar to the old style center pull brakes they used to use on 10 speeds. The difference is that instead of being mounted in the center, it's mounted at the pivot points, just like the cantilevers up front. This setup was only available for a few years, and thank goodness they stopped using it because it's a real pain in the neck to work on. First thing I'm going to do is remove this straddle cable. As you can see, the rear cable is a little bit long for this bike, so we're going to shorten it up by about, let's see, about 1.5 inches. First thing I'm going to do is cut off the road bike end, which I don't need on this bike. This little gizmo right here is just to prevent the frame from getting scratched up. This is the other end of the straddle cable. I'm going to trim off this end and put a crimp end on it. When adjusting the brakes, you don't want the handle to go more than halfway down to the bar. All you have to do to increase the tension is screw out the cable adjuster. This particular bike has thumb shifters, but what we're going to do today could easily apply to trigger shifters as well. Before you remove the cable, make sure you shift the bike into its highest gear. That's the smallest gear on the back. The rear shifter cable, in addition to being weather checked, is also cracked. I suspect moisture was probably getting into that. It's also a bit long. What I'm going to do today is cut a slightly shorter cable. That ought to do it. I'm going to cut off a little more than an inch. On the cable itself, I want you to notice there's two different ends. This one right here is for a road bike. It's much smaller than a mountain bike. We're going to cut it off. I'm going to put just a little grease on the barrel adjuster before reinstalling it. Next, we're going to go through the cable guide under the bottom bracket. This bike also has a cable guide that runs through the mount for the U-brake. We're going to cut the rear section of cable housing the same length as the original. cut this cable to the same length as the one on the other side. Next, I'm going to cut off the road bike end from the cable. Thank you for watching my video. I'm pleased to tell you my bike stops and shifts a whole lot smoother at this point. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. And don't forget, like and subscribe.